Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our ThinkHouse Public Sector. This is the third in the series of sessions that we've held this week. On Tuesday, we held an update on case law with Chris Brennan, and I know that that was very well received, and we've had some good follow-up questions on that. Yesterday, we heard from Patrick Arbon on procurement challenges, and in particular applications to lift the stay of proceedings. And today we thought we'd take a look at procurement in practice. And what we thought we'd do is we talk to someone who lives and breathes the front line of procurement. And I'm delighted to be joined by Fiona McLaughlin, who is head of procurement at for the Organising Committee for the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games. That's a bit of a mouthful, Fiona. So I think we should.
It is a little bit.
To the OC, don't we? So head of procurement for the OC, the Organising Committee. And the format for this morning is I'm just going to throw some questions at Fiona and have a bit of a conversation between us, and then we'll do that for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes or so, and then we'll open up for questions. And if people have got questions, there's a Q&A function that you'll see at the bottom of your screen, so do post the questions and we'll pick up as many of those as we're able to at the end. I'm very mindful of today being the 11th of November, so we will aim to finish possibly 11:45, 10 to 11, so that those of you who wish to observe the silence at 11 o'clock have got plenty of time to get ready for that. So that's the overview of the next hour. So Fiona, let's just start perhaps with an overview of your role at the OC. I imagine there are different aspects to it that make it quite interesting and probably a little bit unique.
Definitely unique. I always head towards really challenging roles, but the OC is by far the most challenging, but really fulfilling. It's great to be part of something that's got such a strong legacy impact to the local area and to the UK. I actually joined December 2019, so just heading for my 2-year anniversary, and it's fair to say we've been running for delivery ever since, and I'm glad to say that we're in a good position. We're green to go. So my role is about the operational strategic leadership for procurement. So I'm in charge of how we deliver, when we deliver, if we're on time, and I'm that linking with our stakeholders across the business. So FAs is the term you'll hear me use. That's functional areas, departments in other organisations. And we work with everybody across the business, which is quite common for procurement. We tend to be quite a central hub for the spokes of the business. We also work really closely with our legal colleagues. The big difference for me at the OC is that we've had an in-house legal opportunity to work with the team. Normally, I always have to go externally. So while we've enjoyed having the relationship with Gowling, having Gowling secondees, and having the leadership within the OC has been really beneficial to my role, because it literally means there's something we want to discuss, we literally can walk across the room and have those conversations. Yeah. I also support our sister organisation, Festival 2022, which has now just gone live within Box. So if anybody's not aware of that, please go and have a look, because that's the cultural space. So OC is very much about the sports, but Festival is very much about the cultural, so there's lots of exciting things happening there. And also implementing the contract management assurance, and recently picking up ethical sourcing as well. So it's fair to say there is no time to be bored.
Very varied role. And perhaps a word or two about the context in which that support is provided, and then we might roll into a question too around the some of the challenges, the external challenges that you've had to face.
So in context of the procurements, we've got a core team of procurement staff, and that's flexed all through the games to meet the demand. So obviously, as you would expect, the peaks and not many troughs, to be fair, a lot of peaks, but the delivery we've had to have, we've got to be flexible. So I started off inheriting one particular model. We moved to a 3 towers category approach. We're now looking to reshuffle that as we move into the smaller level procurements. So at peak, we were aimed to have about 22, and at the moment there's about 10 of us, but we are recruiting if anybody's looking for ICM roles, just in case. I
might claim commission on that if it's through this particular webinar.
So. I can't claim it either, Robert, so I'm going to have to say no, but if I could, I'll at least buy you a coffee. So due to the nature of the delivery model, we have to be flexible. And our CFO is very conscious of that and very supportive of taking that approach. So we get the support in the business when we need to review how we're structured. And it's really giving a strong platform for how we deliver the games as a whole.
Yeah, brilliant. And then just some further context around those. I mean, the games got off to quite an interesting start, didn't it, in terms of stepping into the gap, and then you've had some big external challenges to deal with along the way.
Yeah, so for anybody who's not aware, it was originally Derby meant to do the 2022, and for a variety of reasons that wasn't going to happen, and Birmingham stepped into the breach. And the UK is really good at literally picking up the baton and running with it. And I have to say, I think Birmingham's done a phenomenal job. We've had 2 years less in terms of operational preparation, which is significant for any project. But actually at this point in time, we are green on our procurement pipeline and across the business. It is very challenging. So key challenges have been the late handover, obviously, a movable deadline, although I'll talk about later, that moved just 1 day. Public sector delivery model. So sporting events are normally more of a public sector focus. So, you know, it's been quite difficult for the stakeholders to come into an environment where they've not only got to deliver in a shorter space of time, they've actually got to get to grips with, they've got to do it in a PCR 2015 environment. So our role and our colleagues in legal has been very much about supporting and educating in a positive manner on what that means, and vice versa. We've learned a lot from them on how events work, how sports management works. So I think we've all benefited from the opportunity to learn, but we've had to learn on the job and very, very fast. Some of the other things, obviously Brexit, so that's had a major impact on supply markets. Particularly noticed it with furloughed staff as we were tendering. So sometimes we've given additional extensions to make sure we get that thorough engagement and being fair. And the elephant in the room is the pandemic. So, you know, if you made up a list of all the things that could go wrong, I don't think you would have quite pictured we would be in the position that we're in. But it's, you know, it's a sign of the quality of people we've got in the OC, the dedication to what we're there to deliver, and that focus, as I mentioned before, on the legacy aspect. That is our driving factor. We want to deliver a fantastic games. Hopefully, as we're coming out to recovery, that people can get that fun, have that family event, and just have something that we can celebrate in the UK and in Birmingham.
You mentioned there the slightly different structure that you've got in Birmingham for compared to how other Commonwealth Games have been pulled together, and the overlay with the public contracts regulations that others have not had to grapple with. Clearly, further afield in the Commonwealth, they're not caught by what was the EU procurement rules and now the UK procurement rules. How has that worked with stakeholders and that need to get used to working in a different, I say a different environment, but also effectively a different set of rules and constraints that are surrounding them?
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, it's been very challenging for them because they're already up against it with their timelines. But they've rose that challenge. You know, they've worked with us really well. Obviously, you know, you can have some difficult conversations, as we do in any public sector environment and indeed private sector. But it's, you know, we try and do that respectfully. They know that we're there to support them. We know that they've got a really difficult job to deliver. So it is about everybody working together to make sure that happens. Public procurement, as we know, is quite complex. For people who haven't worked in it, it can be confusing and they don't understand necessarily why they've got to do it. But, you know, again, that's been led from the top. So Ian Reid, our CEO, has given really strong messaging to the business that this is what we're required to do. Ian's got understanding of the public regs from the pre-2015 regulations. So it's well supported, but it definitely has made the delivery model more of a challenge than it already was.
Yeah, because there's sometimes people come at it, if they're not familiar with it, and they see it as a bit of a bureaucratic process, don't they? And I think what I've been impressed in my dealings with you and your colleagues is that it's you see it as a way of demonstrating value for money. So see the
Completely.
positives in it. Don't see it as a painful process.
Yeah, and I take that approach in any organised, even if it's a public sector, so NHS, social housing, whatever. I always take that approach, and it's as simple as facilitate rather than dictate. You know, we don't have a choice in the regs that we have to follow, but how we deliver that messaging is part of how it gets across and gets on board and embedded. And, you know, I think people are seeing some benefits out of the process. You know, their contracts will be very robust. Can't take the credit for that myself. That's our legal team who do phenomenal work, and all the challenges we have, they share because they're part of our procurement, but also have to do the contracts at the end. So it's a bit of a double whammy for them. So they're really the bread in the sandwich. But yes, we get great feedback, and even from our board members when we're going. So we have a lot of governance that we have to follow, and when we're going there, you know, the feedback we're getting is really, really positive. Really recognise the work of my procurement team, of legal, of our stakeholders, and you know, miracle is one word that gets used, which I can't disagree with, because we have got a big pipeline to deliver, but it's just down to the hard work and dedication of the people in the OC.
Fantastic. So if we start to get into some of the nuts and bolts of it now, so because we're talking about procurement in practice, what sort of number of contracts are we talking about that you and your team have been responsible for, and as part of that, what are the sorts of procedures that you use? I know those of us involved in public, we love to hear from others about, well, did you use the dialogue procedure or whatever it might be? So some idea of the scale of it, and then the procedures that you follow.
Yeah, so obviously our pipeline is a live document, so it's continually fluctuating and for a number of reasons. So for instance, it might be we look at things and we feel they need to be broken down more because of the nature of what they are, or we want to reach more the SME market. It might be we build them up because the delivery time we've got, we need a bigger contract to manage because we wouldn't deliver it in the time. There's a whole host of factors, but at the moment we've got nearly 300 on the pipeline. We've delivered well over half of those, and of the ones that we've delivered, the majority have been at an ODU level. So you know that they've been significant. We're talking millions of pounds worth of contracts there. I made a quick note in case you asked me this. So competitive dialogue, 17. Competitive procedure with negotiation, 14. Now, if anybody on the call in public sector, and I've worked in public sector and private sector, it's quite unusual to go down those routes. We would normally play it safe and do open restricted framework, and for something really special, we'll do something else. It's become quite a standard tool for us because a lot of what we're doing is so niche, is so bespoke, requires so much dialogue with the market to make sure we're delivering the right thing in the right time, that you know the conversations that we have around the table, which includes legal, procurement, finance, the FAs of what we're trying to achieve and how we're trying to get there, does require us to look at all the options. And literally when I have somebody new join the team, they are given a copy of the regs. So we'll have a lot of printing to do in the new year when the new regs come out. And the reason we do that is because we don't want to sit on our laurels and just go with what is the standard or the easy. It's what is right for this delivery, what is right for this procurement, this team, this project. And that's the approach we take every time. We've even done an innovation partnership, which even I hadn't done, which we did for our baton. So it's really exciting, it's really challenging. But I think the team will be phenomenally well skilled at the end of the games, and that benefits the public sector as a whole because they'll be available after the games time to move into new roles.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's just dig into that a little bit more. So you've got your pipeline of 300 opportunities, and you've mentioned you use the dialogue procedure for some and negotiated procedure frameworks where you can, and so on. So what's the process you go through to identify what's the right procedure for a particular requirement?
So there's a number of factors that we'll look at. So we'll look at the stakeholder objectives and timescales. We'll look at the values. Obviously, is it above or below ODU? And where does it sit in our own scheme of financial delegation? the target dates for contract awards. So if we're on really tight deadlines, we've got to look for a quicker award process. We do look at frameworks as a public body and an arm's length. We are expected to look particularly at CCS. So we do explore those, and sometimes we've been able to utilise those, and sometimes it's just been too bespoke. Availability of stakeholders and the scope data. So obviously we can't start a procurement till we've got full details of what they actually want to procure. The routes that fit. So we have a matrix that goes through each of the procurement processes, and our legal team have gone through that and made suggestions of when they are the best fit and what the challenges would be around those. Pre-market engagement. So you can go out with a view of how you'll procure, but when you get that pre-market feedback, that can actually change the way you want to approach it, because the market may be telling you there's a better way, or we're not clear on something. So that's a really good opportunity to sort of reset your thinking before you actually go to the market with the final opportunity. And clearly the social value opportunities. So social value is at the heart of everything we do. We do a minimum of 10% on every procurement. Sometimes we'll do higher. And that is a massive key delivery that we have to report on for every single procurement.
Yeah, that's a really interesting area. We might see whether we pick up on that in the Q&A around the social value. So there's that range of routes there. Did you touch at all on direct awards and regulation 32? I know that with the pandemic, there was the opportunity with some of the guidance coming out from CCS and the Cabinet Office, but were there opportunities for you to be able to use that?
Yeah, absolutely. Generally on the lower level things. So direct awards, obviously through frameworks, dependent on how they're set up, you have that opportunity. But we still have to show value for money even if we're doing that.
Yeah.
And sorry, what was the other part of the question?
Well, I was thinking, because I know
Reg 32.
Yeah, Reg 32, because I know some of the not the urgencies type things, but there were some things which, because of the nature of the games, they're just a bit unique, aren't they? There's the cultural, yes,
the cultural aspect. So we've got festival, and we've also got a cultural arm within the OC. So we're delivering 2 cultural programs in effect, both of which are going to be really exciting and have been really interesting for us to get a handle on. But when we were looking for what's the best way, because actually in most public sector, cultural, unless probably you're working in DCMS actually, you're not going to be involved in. So we've had to do some learning ourselves on what are the options, and obviously we've spoken with Gowling direct, spoken with our own legal team and CLO, and Reg 32 was an option for us. So where it's been appropriate, then we have followed that, and it's worked really well, both in terms of delivery and the fastness that we can deliver a procurement. But you do need to be quite mindful of the rules that sit around it. So it's not, I think when it first came out, everybody thought it was a get out of jail free card, and it really isn't. You have got to be quite diligent, and we certainly are.
Yeah, fantastic. So should we move on to stakeholders? With something like the games, the range of interested parties is just enormous, isn't it? So who are some of those stakeholders, and particularly in the context of a procurement of these contracts, how did you get them involved? What were the different roles that you had them playing through?
Okay, so I apply the same principles I'd apply anywhere else really. So you look at what you've got to deliver, and there's clearly key people. So procurement, obviously, the FAEs, so they can have multiple people because there'll be threads to what they're looking to deliver. So you try and keep the project team a tight project team. The nature, the size of what we've got to deliver means they are sometimes slightly larger than I would normally go for. Our legal team, so I mentioned before, they're there from the outset. So as soon as we put something on the pipeline and we're getting close to a delivery, they will allocate a legal lead and they will work throughout that process. And as we step away slightly for the contract sign up, they carry on taking that through, and we just become the support in that relationship. Finance, obviously, because of our evaluation aspects, our legacy team, so sustainability and social value, and then externally there might be other partners. So we've worked closely with Transport for West Midlands, we've worked closely with West Midlands Police, and obviously CGFP also have an interest in everything that we're doing. So we have quite a significant reporting on our sourcing strategy. So that's how we'll start, and our award recommendation. So both ends of that project are put under scrutiny and questioned before we actually even go to the market and before we do that final award. Oh, and I forgot to mention also DCMS and Cabinet Office.
Yes.
So again, that was a new one for me because being central government, Cabinet Office isn't, you know, if you work in NHS or social housing or some of the other public bodies, you don't have that interaction. So just for anybody on the call who's thinking of going into central government, that's something I would suggest they need to read up on quite quickly when they join anything that's central or at arm's length.
Now, I'm clearly of the view that the most important aspect of any public procurement is the contract at the heart of it. So I'm just interested as to whether you and colleagues in the legal team were able to, with such a vast number of procurements, were you able to make use of standardized contract terms in any way? Were there any examples where it was just so unique a requirement that you had to have quite bespoke terms?
A bit of both is the honest answer, Robert. And I know Alexia Binns is our head of legals on the call, so I feel like I should almost be handing to her, but I'll follow the wording that I've got. So the team developed standard contracts, which you would expect, but there's always been, you know, I spoke earlier about flexibility. The contracts work the same way. So for OG level, we've got the goods and services. We've got the goods and ancillary, we've got the framework master supply agreements, we've got turnkey, because one of our procurements was a turnkey procurement of substantial size. And then they've also provided us with simpler ones for the under OJ. So working together where we've kind of looked at the pipeline, looked at what the contractual requirements will be, they've then advised us on what they can offer. And you know, obviously at the beginning, we're trying to work through that as we were doing the procurements, but now as the team's got bigger, they've had more time to sort of have those prepped ready. But with everything, you have to adapt. So obviously when we had the pandemic, they've then revisited all those contracts and made sure that the clauses include things to protect the OC and to make sure we get the delivery that we need to achieve.
In that particular example, in case there was a delay or postponement or whatever it might have been, we might come back
Absolutely.
and talk about the pandemic in particular in a minute. And then just taking that sort of contract journey then to its next stage, to what extent have your team been involved in sort of readiness for contract management, and presumably contract management that's actually up and running? Some of these contracts are presumably in.
Yeah, absolutely. So the FAs, the functional areas, are the ones responsible for contract management at the ground level. So whatever contract we've awarded, they then run with it and manage it. What we have put in place is contract management assurance. So we've done training, we've given guidance, we've provided templates, we've provided software tools for the KPI management. We've got separate tools for the social value, so we make sure we capture it, we measure it, make sure it's achieved. You know, in any procurement, we've all been there where you can do the best procurement in the world, but if the contract isn't managed, you know, quite focused, then you can lose some of the benefits, and the OC is quite keen that we don't fall into that trap. So that's the approach that we've taken. Obviously, the nature and the size of the procurement pipeline we've got to deliver, we are supporting where we need to on contract management, but at this point in time, our focus has very much been on the procurement delivery, because otherwise we don't have contracts to manage.
Yeah, super. So just picking up on that pandemic point, and this is just sort of personal curiosity really, was we saw what happened with the Tokyo Olympics and the pushback and in fact what turned out to be a fantastic Olympics in the summer. Was there any suggestion that the Commonwealth Games might be put back, and did that have any impact on the negotiations and the dealings with suppliers at the time when we were looking at what was happening with Tokyo?
Yeah, I mean, it was really unfortunate for Tokyo, because having sat here for 2 years, I know the amount of work they will have done to work on the original deadline, and you know, it's a bit soul destroying that for all the reasons we know about that had to move. That said, the whole of the eventing industry is very agile. it's used to having challenges, maybe not on the scale of a pandemic, but they are very agile in their approach anyway. My observations behind the scenes were that all of the sporting eventing calendar members came together. For the OC, that was led by Ian Reid and his team. So they were at the forefront of discussing what was planned, what needed to move now because of Tokyo. And they negotiated a really good outcome for ourselves where we only moved one day, which was a phenomenal outcome for us actually. Although some would argue another year would have been quite nice. I think we're ready for the delivery, to be honest. So that was fantastic news for us. Obviously, there are still work that we need to do when it's even a day. So all the contracts have to be revisited just to make sure that there was no impact on the delivery. Suppliers were communicated with, the business was communicated with. Every week we have what we call Birmingham Buzz, where Ian gives us updates on what's happening in the business. And, it's a real touch base for everybody to sort of, even if it's not your area, to get a feel for what's going on. So he kept us really well informed on that.
Yeah. I'm always nervous on behalf of clients when you've got an immovable date. Things like an event of the games, or the other example earlier this year, the census. These things can't be moved, and obviously your nightmare scenario is if you've got a challenge along the way that can just throw that timetable off course. What's been the experience with, if I talk about not sort of operational challenges here, I mean formal challenges?
You mean formal legal challenges?
Yeah, the bit of challenges.
I'll cling on to a piece of wood as I answer that, but at this point in time, no, we've had no formal challenges. And I think part of the reason is that obviously with the regs, you are required to give comprehensive feedback. I think we give really diligent feedback on the reasons why people haven't, where they've scored, and it's very, very detailed. And we do that in cooperation with our legal team. So a lot of work goes into that final preparation of notifying bidders. And I think you've got to be respectful to the market on that. There's a lot of work involved. There's a cost involved. So you want them to go away with something that's constructive and useful that they can take with them to build into their next bids in the public sector. So that's the approach that we take. It's the approach I would take anywhere, to be fair, but we've particularly been quite diligent on it at the OC.
We haven't dug into roles before the OC that you've had, but it's quite clear you've had a broad background in procurement. What looking, I know you're not there at the end yet, but in terms of the past 2 years, what's been particularly unique or unusual in working on the games?
Lots of things, and I'm answering very carefully because I want this to very much be the OC show, not the Fiona show. When I join any business, I always go in open-minded and trying to learn what's going on, and every business has its own unique aspects. So, for instance, when I worked in social housing, Section 20 was something I hadn't come across. With the OC, there's quite a few. So we've already spoken about event management. It's not normally public sector. So you're dealing with people who are used to being very dynamic, very results driven, are very conscious literally of the clock ticking around the corner from the office in our case. And your role is there to support them on that delivery. So, you have to balance that with, we are actually required to follow a certain process. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, that education process of actually we're a public body and what that means is this, and let us walk you through the process. Equally, we've had to learn about their roles and their challenges and their demands. And, for sporting and cultural, so we mentioned Regulation 32, we've had to go out and search for, is there something that we've missed because of previous experience that we wouldn't have done a Regulation 32? So we've been very open to that approach as well. Eventing is a very different world. I call it quite nomadic because literally people will pick up their entire lives and travel around the world to deliver another event. So they are very used to this style, and working in public sector, that's not the world we live in. So obviously that's adjustment for both sides, but I think it's generally worked pretty well. 2 years less on a delivery has just been You know, even for me personally, I would have liked another year before I joined, because I was trying to put the BAU and standard practices in place as I was actually doing a delivery, which isn't the normal way you would do it. You would, you know, you would set up your foundation, and we were having to do both at the same time. So that was quite challenging. Brexit, just the uncertainty. So we didn't know what the regs would look like. So the green paper's been out there. I've fed back on that, along with a number of members of the team and legal. We just didn't know what the impacts would be. We didn't know when it would change. So we're starting as PCR 2015, but at what point does it change?
Yes.
You know, are we going to, you know, do we hold on for that change? Will it give us more flexibility? We can't hold on for anything, because we just need to get it delivered. You know, and it's a broken record, but the pandemic's been the most unique thing, not just for us, but for the entire global economy and workforce. I think we've actually adapted really well for that. The business hit it hard. So, you know, we've looked at how to keep people safe in the office, how to keep people safe at games time. We have a whole team of people that are continually monitoring the COVID impacts. So it really gives you confidence in an organisation when they are on it from the minute it started up. So that's really reassuring and good to hear and say.
Yeah, fantastic. My final question then, Fiona, is clearly when the games take place next summer, that will be an incredibly proud moment for you and colleagues and for everyone at the OC. But up to this point, in terms of the procurement role that you've undertaken, what are you most proud of so far over the past 2 years?
So there's lots of things I'm proud of, but without any shadow of a doubt, it's my team. And I know that's going to sound a bit of a cliche, but we're green because of the hard work of my team. They've worked incredibly hard. They've pushed their skill sets and learned. And, you know, normally in any public sector body, you have your work plan and you have quite an extended time to deliver it. Probably the exception is NHS and the COVID PPE, I would say, is probably the nearest to what we've had to do. And obviously with far stronger impacts. But they've really knuckled down, worked well with the stakeholders, really challenged themselves and looked for other ways to deliver. So we wouldn't be in the position that we're in if it wasn't for them. And sitting behind my team, obviously, are all the supporting functions. You know, I keep mentioning legal, but legal almost feel like my twin in the business. That, you know, anything we do, we're so closely linked. It almost feels like we're one team at times. And our value is that delivery. So, you know, if somebody asks me what's the value that we add to the business, it is the fact that we've delivered phenomenal social value outcomes. And legacy, as I mentioned before, is a big factor of why I joined the OC. We've delivered it on budget, we've delivered it on time, and we've met the needs of the stakeholders as described to us. So I don't know if any of my team will be on today because I didn't actually share with them I was doing this one, but just publicly, I just want to thank them for all their hard work.
That's fantastic. That's great. Thank you, Fiona. Now we've got, I encourage people to keep posting some questions. We've had 3 or 4 through already. And actually you've mentioned, Fiona, there, you've mentioned legacy and social value. We've had a couple of questions in on social value. First one from Mark, and I'll put these two together if I may. So Mark Ridge, can we have some examples of social value outcomes that you've built into the contracts? How did they come about? You know, did you identify the opportunities? Did you look to suppliers to deliver that? An important aspect around how do you measure social value? There's quite a lot in these questions, aren't there? I might break it down for you in a moment. And then Jerry Anderson, how have you found implementing the social value objectives, and in particular, you know, the 10% weighting that we have to build in around evaluation, and how does that play with value for money outcomes? So maybe a little bit about how did you sort of identify the opportunities? How did that play out in terms of the weighting and the overall assessment? And a bit about measurement, if that's okay.
Okay, so in terms of how we identify them, we look for social value in every procurement we do. The idea of not having a social value aspect in any of our contracts is is not our end game at all. You know, it's at the heart of the Commonwealth Games delivery model. So we always do that. We have a legacy team, and we work with them. So as part of every procurement, they will be part of that. So identifying it can come from a number of means. We may already have ideas of how that could be. The market engagement will be part of it. So we'll be looking for a feel from the market as to what they currently do, what they think they could offer. We ask a variety of questions within our evaluation criteria. If we're doing competitive dialogue, we'll spend some time talking through that. In terms of how we assess that, we do monitor it very closely. So we all know there are instances where things are promised in the contracts, and particularly in the social value space, but it's not actually followed up afterwards. And the same with KPIs. We've taken quite a strong, diligent approach. So we actually have a team that work on that specifically. We report on our social value outcomes. We actually have a legacy director who works across the partners as well. So it's a really strong area of the business, and quite rightly so. So some of the things we can get is, it can be anything from learning and skills. You know, there's the usual things of apprenticeships, but we've gone much further. So it can be, you know, a forest from Severn Trent. So if people haven't gone and looked at the feedback on that, it can be about skills and training. It can be free legal advice. There's such a wide variety. Obviously, one of the things that the Commonwealth wants to do is target those elements of the community that don't always get the opportunities that are out there, either because, you know, they haven't got the training, or they haven't got the appropriate clothing to go for an interview, or, you know, a variety of things. And then we've got our volunteers. So any of our volunteers get training, they will get certificates at the end. So there's a whole range of that. And to be honest, Robert, I'd probably suggest that the OC could give you a really good session on social value and talk about it in much more detail than I can. But just to finish off with, we manage it through using software. So we've got some software that's just been put into play. We're just starting to see the reports coming out of that, but we've done it manually up to that point, so that we can really get under the skin of what we've asked for and really start breaking down beneath it, what's the actual impact of that being. So it's a really great question, really important to the OC, and well worth a further session for you, I'd suggest.
It's great to have some of those examples that you've given, Fiona, because I know in the context of social value, it's often quite challenging, depending on the nature of the services. What are the opportunities for that? So I think we'll take you up on that offer to explore that a little further.
Hopefully our legacy team will be appreciative of that, not tell me off.
There's a separate question that Jerry Anderson has raised around we mentioned the different procurement procedures that you adopted for different requirements, and I think we spoke a little bit about some of the factors. But what about the actual decision-making process, the sort of matrix used to say, right, for this particular opportunity, is it suitable for restricted, open, or dialogue? What was a bit more detail around that, if you're able?
Yeah, so we have a matrix that our legal lead worked on for us. So we review that. As I mentioned earlier, there's a number of factors that come into that. So timescales are a critical one, and as we get closer to games, obviously that's going to be much harder to run with a big competitive dialogue this close to games, but it's certainly not ruled out. The other aspects that we'll look at can we break it down into smaller lots? Is there a framework available to us? So there's a whole host of aspects that go into that. And it's what are we trying to achieve from the delivery? So if it's something that you're offering to the market and it's very obvious what you're looking to deliver, or you're being very firm in how you want it delivered, then that naturally leans you towards certain procedures. If it's more of an open conversation of this is the objective, but we're open to other ways of how that could be delivered, then some of the competitives give you a little bit more flexibility. What I would always say is you can't underestimate the benefits of that market engagement. I would never work on your assumptions when you're going into a procurement, because you can look at it and think, well, obviously this would be best delivered this way, and this model would work, and this type of contract. But when you go to the market, you can get different feedback. And I think in the current climate that we're in with Brexit and a pandemic, where the working patterns of those supplier markets has changed because we've all had to adapt, those assumptions probably are not as strong as they would have been beforehand. So I think that's another factor I'd bear in mind when you're looking at your options.
And then a final question from Andy McDonald. Good morning, Andy. You talked about innovation partnership procedure, Fiona, and the baton. That's the first time you've used that. So how did you go around planning that, the use of that? And in particular, what were your thoughts on using it? Were there particular benefits that came out? I know the end result is an absolutely fantastic piece of technology, but the procedure itself, the first time you used that, what were your thoughts around that?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, it was one of my procurement business partners that ran it, so I don't want to steal the thunder of the person who actually ran that. It was really interesting, actually, and it wasn't something we'd naturally have gone for, but it just, when we looked at the way we wanted to deliver that, you know, the concept of a competition for the design, for instance, that doesn't really lend itself to anything but innovation partnership. So it wasn't a case of this is the design we want and we go out to the market. So a bit rolling back to the conversation we've just had about knowing what you want to achieve. We knew we wanted a baton. We knew the kind of elements we wanted to bring. You know, it needs to have that Commonwealth story within it. But that's not our area. And there are people out there who clearly are really skilled. And we had some fantastic options on the table, but taking that forward from the design stage to the manufacturing stage, that was why that particular procedure was such a good fit. And as you say, what's being developed is stunning. You know, the complexity of it, the design is very simple and smooth lines. The colours of it, you know, are replicative of Commonwealth. We've got, you know, as somebody holds it, it gives the heartbeat of the person holding it. So we consider that the heartbeat of the Commonwealth Games. There are so many, you know, I'm not a artistic person, but for me, when I saw that, I actually felt slightly emotional just looking at what it actually would mean to people within the Commonwealth when they were taking it round their country. So to be part of that, however small a part, was really special.
Super. I'm going to take one last question that Karen Brumpton's raised. I'm going to do that before I get completely blinded by this.
I was going to say, you're struggling there, Robert.
So market engagement. I've always been an advocate of market engagement, and I know it takes a bit of time and people worry about the impact on the timelines. And how did that work out for you? So what were some of the areas that you engaged with the market on? Is there an example maybe of something, well, that was we weren't expecting that when we went into the engagement, and how did you balance it with the timelines, given the pressures you had of this immovable date?
Yeah, I haven't got any examples immediately to mind. I mean, it can be a variety of things. So we have a standard project plan that we've developed, and basically we filter it by the process. So if nobody's doing that at the moment, that's worked really well for us. So all the steps are there, we filter by the process and we build it in. Market engagement is always there. There are rare occasions where we don't use it, but generally we do, because one, it can solidify your thoughts currently on how you should be approaching it. Two, it tells the market that this is coming. So I know you've got the pin notice anyway, and we use that as part of it. So you can just say, we're planning on coming to a procurement in 6 months' time. But actually making them aware and saying, this is what we're thinking, give us some feedback. So we'll have some standard questions, and then we'll probably have some little bit more bespoke, depending on what we're going out for. And then the feedback you get from that can be, actually, we think it would be better if you broke it down. Or, you know, on occasions, we've even had it where they've felt we should go and use a framework for what we were planning to do. So it can really range in terms of the feedback that you get, but it will either solidify your thoughts already, or it will give you pause for thought where you look back at it and go, actually, we need to change it completely. Or more likely, there are a few tweaks we can do which will actually open it up to more people in the market, which obviously is what you always want to do. It's always about, the whole point of PCR is opening it up to competition. So we found it's worked really well, and we do take the feedback on board and have made changes along the way on the procurements.
That's great. I keep saying I was on my final question, but Jerry's a great question. Can you see that in the Q&A there, Fiona? So it says, you're clearly enthused by the challenge of delivery, but how do you decompress? And how will the team be helped to readjust? I know from seeing and talking to you and the team, it's an incredibly pressurized environment, isn't it? So how do you and colleagues deal with that?
You go through peaks and flows. So through the pandemic, we were so focused on what we'd got to deliver. We were working from home like many people. And we worked long days because the work needed to be done. We were all really enthused about doing it. And you're not going to have the social aspects that you had. It's probably been harder to manage coming out of the pandemic because you kind of set the expectations of that delivery model where you've worked 10 and 12-hour days. I keep in touch very strongly with all of my team because I think mental health is a big factor that we've all got to be mindful of. We do not badger, but we do encourage them to take their leave. You know, if we thought somebody was struggling, we would manage that with them. So all the things you would do in any other business, really. For me personally, I'm just about to go away for the weekend, so that is my decompress. And it's also sharing that load with each other. So, you know, everybody in any environment has times where they find it a little bit tougher than others, but sharing that with your colleagues. My team are really, really supportive of each other. You know, I've worked with some fantastic people over the years, but this team for me are really special. So I think, you know, just keeping a check on each other, being supportive, and also just doing a welfare check on yourself occasionally, which we are all prone not to doing. And I think that's just an important piece of advice. Yeah. But thank you for that question and that feedback.
Yeah. And then just finally, just looking forwards, what's be great to keep the team together. I suspect that's not going to be possible, is it? So have you come from elsewhere as seconded? You got places to go back, or are you all sort of new into role and the future?
You mean after we leave the games?
Yes, after the games.
I'm going to take a very long holiday and break, and then I'll probably go back to interim. So I came out to that specifically for the games. It wasn't something I would have considered for anything else, because I'd only been doing it for 18 months. But the games were so special. It was so important to the local area. I just really wanted to be part of it. For me, for the team, I think their future careers are going to rocket. So next year, as you know only too well, we'll get the new regs in. And based on the green paper, there'll be a lot more flexibility than we've ever enjoyed. And for people who haven't done the wide range of processes that we've done, that can be a little bit scary. I mean, I think every time the regs change, it's, well, what do we do now? And we're really concerned about doing it right. For my team, I think that's going to be a much easier transition because they have been pushed to, I hate the term think outside the box, but I can't think of a better one at the moment, but really push the boundaries of, you know, have we looked at all the options within the regs? Have we really explored this is the quickest, best way? And also the resilience of working in something where you're leading on multiple procurements at any one time. So I think the gift we'll give back to the public sector is some really talented, skilled, enthusiastic people to try and fill that very shallow pool we have, particularly in the Midlands, for procurement professionals. So any part that we've played in that journey for them, I'm proud to be part of.
Fantastic. I think that's a wonderfully positive note to finish on, Fiona. So thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you for those who have dialed in to listen, and thank you particularly to those who have raised some great questions over the last 15 minutes or so. So Fiona McLaughlin, thank you very much.
Thank you. And Robert, thanks for the opportunity for sharing the OC story, and thanks everybody at Gowling for your support so far. We do appreciate it.
Right. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you.